First story. During my fight with cancer, my wife had an affair. Now I'm finding out more lies. I thought I was fighting cancer alone. I couldn't have been more wrong. While I was stuck in a hospital bed battling for my life, my wife was living a life I never knew about. Turns out, she had an affair, and that was just the beginning of the lies. The more I uncovered, the more my world unraveled. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happened next. Stick around till the end. I've uncovered truths that will leave you speechless. And if you're hooked, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more jaw-dropping stories like this. When I first heard the words, "you have cancer," it felt like the ground just disappeared beneath me. It wasn't just the illness that hit me. It was the weight of knowing how much my life was about to change. I was scared, exhausted, and in constant pain. My wife, the woman I thought I could trust with everything, was by my side, but something felt off. She told me all the right things, gave me the support I needed, but I could feel a distance growing. I was too weak to question anything. I just focused on surviving. Little did I know, while I was fighting for my life, she was fighting her own battle. And it wasn't with me. It all started with something small, just a missed call on her phone. I didn't think much of it at first, but when I saw the name, something clicked. I tried to ignore it, but curiosity got the best of me. I picked up her phone when she wasn't around and saw a message. And it wasn't just a friendly conversation. My heart sank. I couldn't breathe. I was in the middle of my own battle with cancer, and here I was, fighting a different kind of pain. The woman I trusted, the one who swore she was always by my side, had been hiding something from me. I thought the worst was behind me, but this was just the beginning. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was so much more I didn't know. When I confronted her, she tried to downplay it, like it was no big deal. "It was just a mistake," she said. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But as I dug deeper, the lies started piling up. She wasn't just lying about the affair. I found out she'd been hiding things from me for months, about our finances, things she'd been secretly buying, and promises she'd made about our future that weren't true. Each new lie felt like a slap in the face. Here I was, already struggling with cancer, and I was now facing the brutal truth that I couldn't trust the one person I thought would never hurt me. It felt like my world was falling apart, piece by piece. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair. It was about everything she'd built on lies. And I didn't know who she really was anymore. As I started to recover, she kept telling me everything was fine between us. She'd act like nothing had changed, like the affair never happened. But then I found out she'd been lying about seeing a therapist. She'd told me she was going to sessions, trying to work on herself, but when I checked, there were no records of it. The lies kept getting bigger, more elaborate. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. She was covering up the fact that she'd been hiding so much more. I began to realize she wasn't just lying. She was manipulating me. She'd used my cancer as a shield, made me believe everything she did was to protect me, to spare me from stress. But all along, she was only protecting herself. The more I uncovered, the more it seemed like she was hiding something even bigger, something that would change everything I thought I knew about our life together. I started to see the pattern. She wasn't just lying to me, she was lying to herself too. Every time I uncovered another truth, it became clear. This wasn't just about the affair. It was about everything. Our entire relationship had been built on a foundation of lies. And that's when it hit me. My battle with cancer wasn't the only fight I was facing. I was fighting for my trust, my dignity, and the future I thought I had with her. That realization changed me. It made me stronger in ways I never imagined. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of her betrayal. I never thought I'd face cancer alone. But in the end, I realized that betrayal is its own kind of illness. It wasn't just the cancer that broke me. It was the lies, the deceit, and the realization that the woman I loved had been hiding so much. But I've learned something important through all of this. I deserve honesty, respect, and love, and I'm no longer willing to settle for anything less. I'm still healing, but I'm stronger now, and I'm finally ready to move forward. If you've ever dealt with betrayal or something unexpected in your life, hit that like button and share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories, where the truth always finds a way to come out. Second story. My brother faked PTSD for decades to manipulate everyone around him. We only found out recently. Growing up, my brother was always the sensitive one. He was the one who needed extra care, the one everyone felt they had to protect. And after he came back from his time overseas, we all believed his stories. He said he saw things that no one should ever have to witness, things that left him broken inside. He told us about the war, the nightmares, and how it haunted him every single day. Naturally, we all believed him. How could we not? He was our brother, and we wanted to help. He became the center of our world. It felt like everything we did had to revolve around him and his struggles. We'd spend hours comforting him, rearranging plans, adjusting our lives, always thinking that we were doing the right thing by supporting him. The narrative in our family became simple. He's going through something huge, but he's strong enough to get through it. So, we had to be there for him, no questions asked. But looking back now, I realize how much control his suffering had over all of us. It dictated what we did, how we acted, and even how we saw ourselves. We didn't just help him, we were living in his story. It didn't happen all at once, but over time I started noticing little things that didn't add up. For example, my brother would claim he was having PTSD flashbacks, but his reactions didn't always fit the situation. Sometimes, he'd get really anxious over the smallest things, things that didn't seem like they should trigger him. Yet other times, when we were in much more intense situations, ones where anyone might expect him to react, he'd be completely calm. It didn't make sense. As the years went by, he started pulling away from the family more and more. He'd lock himself in his room for days, saying he couldn't handle being around people, that he just needed space to deal with his trauma. But then, when we weren't around, he'd be out with friends, hanging out like everything was fine. It was confusing. He'd act one way around us, and a completely different way when he thought no one was watching. I tried to ignore it at first, thinking I was just overthinking. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It was just too hard to believe, though. He had us all so convinced that his pain was real. How could I question him? The truth came out completely by accident. One afternoon, my brother was away, and I was cleaning up his old stuff. That's when I stumbled across an old box tucked away in the back of his closet. It was filled with medical reports, photos, and even a letter from his therapist. As I started flipping through the papers, I froze. Nothing added up. The details didn't match his stories. Nothing was consistent with the PTSD he had claimed to have. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. All the little inconsistencies, all the things I had been ignoring, suddenly made sense. I had to confront him. When he came home, I asked him about it, trying to stay calm. At first he tried to brush it off, lie his way out of it, but I kept pressing him, and finally he broke down. That's when he admitted it. He had never had PTSD. Everything was a lie. Every doctor's visit, every emotional outburst, every so-called flashback. It was all part of a plan to manipulate us. He had been faking it for years, using his supposed trauma to get sympathy, avoid responsibilities, and control the entire family. The moment he confessed, it felt like the floor dropped out from under me. The shock hit us all like a wave. We felt betrayed, angry, and heartbroken. How could someone we loved so deeply do something so cruel to us? It was almost impossible to process. The damage was far worse than I ever imagined. It wasn't just that my trust in my brother was shattered. Our entire family was left broken. Some of us still can't forgive him for what he did, while others can't even begin to understand how he could take it that far. We all feel like we've been living in a lie for years, and it's hard to come to terms with that. Looking back now, I can't help but see how easily he manipulated us all. When you care about someone, you're willing to believe the best in them, no matter what. He used his so-called condition as a way to control us, and somehow, it worked for far too long. It's made me question everything we thought we knew about him, how much of what we saw was real, and how much was just another lie. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that we need to question what we're told, even by the people we love most. Caring for someone is important, but we also need to be aware and protect ourselves from being manipulated. Sometimes, the people closest to us can hurt us the most, even if it's not intentional. At the end of the day, the truth always comes out. And when it does, it changes everything. If you ever find yourself in a situation where something feels off, don't ignore it. Trust your instincts. It might just save you from a lot of heartache down the road. Third story. My fiancé betrayed me by inviting my toxic parents to our wedding, so I canceled everything. My fiancé and I had been together for a few years by the time we started talking seriously about marriage. We were both so excited about the future, discussing our plans, the life we wanted to build together, and of course, our wedding. Everything seemed to be falling into place perfectly, or at least, that's what I thought. We were both on the same page when it came to the wedding. We dreamed of a beautiful day, surrounded by the people we loved. But more than anything, I was determined to keep it peaceful. No family drama, no tension. I'd even been really clear with him about my parents. They're toxic, manipulative, and I made it very clear from the start that I didn't want them anywhere near our wedding. I wanted a fresh start, free of all that baggage. I trusted him completely. I thought he understood the pain my parents had caused me over the years. I believed that he would protect me from anything that brought that negativity into our lives. It felt like we were building something real, something safe, away from all the toxicity. The first red flag came when I was going over the wedding guest list one evening. As I scanned through the names, I froze. There, right on the list, were my parents. My heart sank. I thought it was a mistake, maybe some mix-up, so I asked my fiancé about it, just hoping he'd explain it away. But his response hit me like a ton of bricks. He said he'd invited them because family is family, and he didn't want to cause tension. I was stunned. How could he say that? He knew exactly how toxic they were, how much they'd hurt me, and yet, he invited them anyway. Anger flooded through me. This wasn't a small mistake, this felt like a deep betrayal. He disregarded everything I'd told him about my parents and the boundaries I'd set. I couldn't understand how he could disrespect me like that, especially after everything we'd been through together. We fought. I told him how their presence would ruin everything, how it would bring all the old hurt back. He didn't get it. He brushed it off, telling me I was overreacting. That's when it hit me. He wasn't taking my feelings seriously at all. It stopped being about the guest list a long time ago. This wasn't just a simple disagreement, it was about respect. If he could brush off my clear boundaries on something as important as our wedding, what else could he disregard? What else would he ignore in the future? I couldn't imagine moving forward with someone who didn't have my back like I thought he did. To say I was devastated would be an understatement. My heart was shattered. This was supposed to be the happiest time of my life, planning a wedding with the person I was supposed to spend forever with. But instead, my fiancé made me feel like I was just a pawn in his game to keep the peace with people who had never cared about me. In that moment, I made the hardest decision of my life. I called off everything, the venue, the catering, the dress, everything. I couldn't go through with a wedding when I realized I was marrying someone who couldn't even value my feelings over the need to please my toxic parents. Of course, he was furious. He begged me to reconsider, said we could work it out, but there was no going back. I couldn't unsee what had happened. The trust was shattered, and with that, I knew the relationship was too. It was the hardest decision I've ever made, but deep down, I don't regret it. I had to remind myself that love means supporting each other, especially when it comes to protecting your peace and respecting your boundaries. If someone truly loves you, they'll stand by you, even when it's hard. Since then, I've learned a tough lesson. Love doesn't mean accepting disrespect, no matter where it comes from, even if it's from family. I deserve respect, I deserve happiness, and I'm no longer willing to settle for anything less. And I hope you remember that too. Sometimes you have to walk away from something that looks perfect on the outside to protect your own happiness and sanity. It's never easy, but in the end, it's the best choice you can make. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have walked away or tried to fix things? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below. If you want to hear more stories about tough decisions and life lessons, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the community. And don't forget to like this video if you can relate to putting yourself first. Stay strong and take care of your peace.